Yes.
Well, it was very interesting, but you know, I'm working in the theological studies field, and for me it's nothing too much new in this. So in biblical studies, for example, it's clear that images of God develop after the experiences and patterns, schemas of the people. Or take the case of scatological representations. They are modeled over the present or actual experiences of people, their anxieties, their desires, their troubles. So it seems that you just confirm what is a historical line of, but I think that it could be useful to try empirical tests to prove this hypothesis.
Yeah, and certainly what I'm saying here is really directed at psychologists of religion who have been making certain basic assumptions about how God is represented in mind, shown by the sorts of measures that they use, typically questionnaire measures that say, oh, what do you think God is like? And rather than asking, what do you think a particular representation of God is like, or rather than considering what sort of schemas might be active at the moment at which people are filling out these questionnaires, rather than, for example, trying to assess multiple representations simultaneously and seeing what happens where there's a discrepancy between different representations and what those discrepancies might indicate. So, yes, certainly from an insider perspective, then lots of this is nothing new, but for psychologists investigating God concepts, then even though this shouldn't be new, this has been around in social psych for 30 years, for some reason it's not being absorbed into the sort of literature, into the sort of research designs that we've seen coming out. If there's no further question, and if there's 2 minutes, I could quickly show you something.
Sure. I just happen to have some data.
I just happen to have some data here that kind of relates to a bit of this. We've been thinking about how can we develop more sophisticated measures, for example, that get into some of these hypotheses. Most of my research is on indirect measures, as some of you may be aware, looking at attentional biases, memory biases, judgment speed biases within religious cognition, within how people represent gods in mind. But we've also been interested in, can we use questionnaire measures in a more sophisticated way, since lots of people trying to measure God concepts are clinical psychologists, for example, with pastoral applications. So in one pilot study we've carried out, then we were asking, just on a trait word, a trait adjective checklist, we were trying to explore two different representations of God that people might have. One is sort of head knowledge, what I believe God is like, what I should believe God is like, what I believe is theologically true about God, those sorts of things. We find the same instructions seem to tap into those, all seem to go the same way, as opposed to their heart knowledge of God, a more affective representation of God that is built up through their experience of God. So when we ask people to rate various trait words on a 7-point Likert scale from very undescriptive to very descriptive, twice, so once for the instruction, what I should believe God is like, and as I said, we've replicated this on what is theologically true about God, and also what my personal experience of what God is like, then we find a nice disparity. And particularly for traits relating to approach to God. So trait words like detached, unapproachable, distant, unresponsive, then we find that their head knowledge, if you like, what they should believe or what's theologically true about God, they're saying these things are not descriptive, pretty much strongly undescriptive, whereas their experience, actually those things are more descriptive. 0.87 Likert points, effect size of 0.85. Over here we have the positive side of things. Are these positive trait words true of God? Well, in their heads, yes. In their hearts, at the experiential level, much less so. 0.76 Likert points difference, an effect size of 0.86. what predicts these disparities? Well, we had all sorts of measures that we threw in there into a regression to see what was going on, and it was these three variables that predicted disparity in approach: two attachment measures, and then church attendance. So if people did not attend church, or attended church less, I'm sorry, then they were more likely to have a larger disparity in their approach. So that's just a quick bit of data indicating to you how measuring two representations of God at once has been able to tell us a whole lot more than just if we'd asked for one of those rather than the other.
A thought I had was, I would hope some of the complexity of your ideas about God concepts would be assimilated by journalists and the media, who always seem to just stop with the statement, 92% of Americans believe in God,
right,
and never pursue it any further.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, which means we have a role in communication of this sort of theory, both in the studies that we do, but also in how we talk about those studies.
If there aren't any further questions, we'll move forward, and thank you very much, Nick.